Well, Mr. Lee Cheuk-yan is otherwise engaged, so I'm presiding over this meeting to elect the chairman. Any nominations, please? Mr. Tam Yu-jong. You nominate me and the seconder. Mr. Frankie Yik seconds. So I have to step aside, don't I? Mr. Tam, you have to stand in here. All right, we had a nomination. Now I'm presiding over this meeting. Any other nominations? Any further nominations? No? All right, then Mr. Kam-lam, elected ipso facto as chairman of this subcommittee. Thank you so much for your support, members. Shall we invite the administration in, please? This resolution is a rather straightforward one because over the years, the franchised bus companies, when renewing the franchises, will be treated in the same way. I'd like to welcome our officials today. Mr. Yao Xingmu, the Secretary for Transport and Housing, Ms. Carrie Cheng, Principal Assistant Secretary for Transport and Housing, Ms. Marcella Lee, Assistant Commissioner, and Mr. Manuel Ng, Government Counsel. Under Secretary, please. Chairman, this resolution is of a technical nature, but the subject has aroused members' concerns, and there is a bit of historical background, if I may take members through this. On the 24th of April last year, the Executive in Council approved the 10-year franchises for the New World First Bus Services Limited, Longwind Bus Company Limited, as well as City Bus Limited. The New World, the new franchise will come into effect in July this year, whereas Longwind and City Bus in May, or May the 1st to be precise. Under the Public Bus Services Ordinance 53B, unless the relevant provisions are applied by resolution of LegCo, Section 5 or the profit control scheme will apply. The profit control scheme is to enable the bus operator to make the permitted return, and the bus fares will be adjusted in accordance with this permitted rate of return. In the 1980s and 90s, the former LegCo and the community criticized severely the profit control scheme because it was a guarantee of the permitted return, and there was a disincentive to make improvements. And the profit control scheme was also encouraging the bus operators to overextend and inflate the assets. The ExCo at that time decided that the profit control scheme would be disapplied to the new franchises granted after 1992. And the Bureau Secretaries will, after a franchise has been granted, move a resolution in LegCo so that the PCS will be disapplied to the new franchises. Since the 1990s, LegCo endorsed 17 resolutions to disapply the PCS to the new franchises. In other words, since that time, the bus operators will not enjoy any profit guarantee, and LegCo has considered this to be appropriate. Since the PCS has been removed in 1992, the government has taken into account a whole basket of factors to revise the charges. One of them is the affordability and accessibility of the public. At the moment, the PCS doesn't apply to any bus franchises. When dealing with the New World, Longwind, and City Bus regarding the new franchises, we have made it abundantly clear that the new franchises will not carry any element of permitted return. The Chief Executive in Council, when approving the franchises in April last year, did not allow this permitted return. In our LegCo brief for members, we have made it very clear that before the 3 franchises come into effect, the LegCo will, by resolution, exclude the application of the profit control scheme to the new franchises. In relation to the franchises from July 2001 to September, we've invited the members of the public as well as the T&T committees of the district councils to add their views. And in July 01 to May 2012, we have reported to the panel regarding the progress of the consultation. We've also consulted the TAC. Now, in this regard, we have not received any particular comments. This application of the PCS to the franchises will be covered by a resolution, and this is a legal procedure we go through to make it clear that the PCS will not be applied, and this is to ensure consistency of the policy and avoid any confusion. This practice is exactly consistent with the previous practices. I'm sure that members' scrutiny doesn't mean that members would like to bring back the profit control scheme and allow the bus operators to enjoy the rate of permitted return. If members reject this resolution, the bus operators will have a reason to ask for the PCS to be brought back. I'm sure that the bus operators would seek to enhance the profit level given the economic situation now, and the members of the public would then be in a passive situation. If members, in relation to this resolution concerning New World, Longwind, and City Bus, if members have any particular questions, I'd be only too delighted to answer members' questions. Dr. Kwokaki. Chairman, this resolution to disapply the PCS, we would support that. But if you look at the operation of the 3 operators, in particular the first bus, of the 3 operators, the instances of lost trips are the highest among the 3 operators, and there are no penalties in the franchises, and you've granted them 10 years if one of them is faring worse than others, i.e. the New World first bus. Will the administration, while granting them the franchise, grant them a less than full term of the franchise? I'm sure that for the administration to grant a 10-year franchise to the 3 bus operators, in particular the one that has attracted the highest number of complaints in relation to lost trips, it is not reasonable at all. Of course, this cannot be done in the context of this resolution, but I hope that the administration will offer an explanation to the members of the public why there was no penalty. Now, when this franchise is granted, isn't it right for the administration to impose some penalty to hold them accountable for what they did. Under Secretary, Chairman, if I may explain here, when considering granting the franchises under the law, the bus companies will have to make sure that the services are provided to the satisfaction of the Commissioner for Transport. The TD does have the mechanism to make sure that the bus services, the overall level of service, will have to be at a level considered appropriate by the Commissioner for Transport, in including the lost trips. Now, lost trip is one of the elements. If you look at 03 to 2010, if you look at the services of these three operators, including the first bus, the number of lost trips range between 0.7% to 2.5%. Recently, over the past year, the first bus may experience higher instances of lost trips, and that we're aware of. On Hong Kong Island, it has to do with the operating conditions. The Transport Department in October last year issued a warning letter and instructed them to make improvement within the 6 months. The operator is working hard on this one. Dr. Kwok, I've asked a very specific question. Given the three bus operators, the New World first bus experienced the highest instances of lost trips. Would you consider granting a shorter term of franchise? I know that you've done something, a warning letter has been issued. That being the case, should the franchise still be granted? Or should you have held the franchise in abeyance, or shouldn't you bring in better competitors to the market? Under Secretary, Chairman, if I may respond to 2 points. First of all, according to our usual practice, if a bus company can prove that it can provide efficient services and will continue to make capital investment, they would normally get a 10-year renewed franchise. This has always been the practice. Now, why 10 years? This is intended to allow them to make long-term planning. In terms of bus operation, it would take considerable investment. If there is any short-term volatility, then it would be detrimental to the operation. It would be detrimental to the certainty. So in order to create a stable environment, normally we grant the franchise for a period of 10 years. What about penalty? Under Secretary, if the bus company falls short in the level of service, including the lost trips, the Commissioner can impose penalty under the law. The speaker is not coming through. Mr. Christopher John. On Hong Kong Island, it is not the first bus, newer first bus that are running on the roads. We have the KMB and the city bus. If the KMB still enjoys the profit control scheme, then it would be causing unfair competition. There are so many tunnel buses on Hong Kong Island, and they're clogging up the roads. So would the administration consider reviewing the situation to see whether the KMB should be or should have the profit control scheme taken away from it, so that they would be on a level playing field? Now, there will be problems because of the less than a level playing field.
Under Secretary, since the KMB no longer has the franchise, so sorry, they already canceled their PCS. So today, no bus franchises have this PCS provision. Further, Mr. Christopher Chung. So as City Bus and New Bus have the same boss, and as I understand, the back office support has already been combined into one department or one group of personnel. So how is it that we can still let them run this way? So they do a lot of repetitive work, and there's a waste of resources. So if it's the same company, so why don't City Bus and New Bus merge together, so that we don't have a lot of repetition in terms of bus stops, or routes, or services, etc. So I knew that they have two different factories in Taiwan. So I think we should discuss this. So it's because of this factor this has affected the performance of New Bus. Undersecretary. Chairman, in regards to City Bus and New Bus, they have a historical background, such as from the previous companies. Of course, their shareholders may be the same, and so their operating may be affected because of it. But when we are granting franchises, we look at each individual companies, whether or not they have the capability to run their bus services, and whether or not they are running it in accordance to the requirements of citizens. So this is how we assess the bus companies. So we do it independently for each company. Thank you. I would like to ask whether any new bus companies that want to throw their head into the ring. If not, has the administration considered whether or not to invite bidders? Second, KMB, it seems that some of the routes are losing money and they hope to reorganize. Now, I don't know whether these few companies have proposed to do this as well. Whether or not for some bus companies do not have very proper arrangements in relative regions. Do you have any information on this? Undersecretary, as Mr. Yu had said, first, in our previous discussions in regards to whether we should grant new franchises to existing companies, there seems that there are no new participants in the market. Therefore, we all saw that the three companies now, that is their experience as well their capability, they all meet the requirements by the Bureau. So this was also agreed by the LegCo. So we discussed with them to renew the 10-year franchise. Secondly, in terms of reorganization of routes, we see that this is not only in Kowloon or new territories. We see that in all of Hong Kong. The bus routes needs to do better in terms of organizing their resources as well as the bus routes. So this year we will have a rather large plan to reorganize with each bus company in different districts, and we will undertake this reorganization. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Yu. So in terms of this reorganization, it will be handled by the bus companies themselves, or as Chris Chung has said earlier, will be reorganization among different companies, so that it will prevent such situations in Hong Kong Island where there is a waste of resources. So will this arrangement of reorganization be coordinated by the Transport and Housing Bureau? Sorry, the Transportation Department. Yes, the Transport Department will take a proactive role, but of course we will need the cooperation of bus companies as well as the support by citizens. So we will take a wholesale approach in looking at this. It will not target one particular company or one particular bus route. Thank you. Mr. Wu Shiwai. Thank you, Chairman. Now, the Undersecretary had said that in discussing with the city bus and new bus that there are no new participants. I would like to understand that. Does it mean that every time there's a review of franchises, is there an open process to allow new participants to give their views and to participate in discussion? Furthermore, in terms of city bus and new bus, do they have interim reviews to ensure that their operational situations is same as what they had promised earlier, so that we don't have to review it every 10 years, which seems too long? So maybe we can have an interim review to see that they have kept their undertakings in the beginning. Thirdly, in 2016, the KMB franchise will expire. Now, the administration, in reviewing the KMB franchise, I would like to ask what kind of planning do you have for that, so that we can find consensus in the society as soon as possible? So, in terms of the overall bus services in Hong Kong, what views do the administration hold on this? So that's very important, because there are 4,000 or so buses in KMB, and they're a very big stakeholder. So in terms of the overall transportation policy, I see that in the policy address, we see that buses will be a supporting transportation device, and I don't know. So this is how this will affect the discussion of the bus services. So I would like to know how this overarching policy will be implemented. So I think you have two questions now. Now, two questions I will let Mr. Undersecretary to ask. But in terms of the third question, I'm sorry, but because today we are discussing these three resolutions for these three companies, that is the profit control schemes, that is to exclude the applicability of that. Perhaps I can ask the Bureau to give me an answer in a written reply. Yes, you can do that, because you've been talking about the KMB franchise. We can discuss it in another setting. So this is not related to what we're discussing here today. So, Undersecretary, could you answer the first two questions, please? Yes, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Wu had said, in terms of the first two questions, of course, the franchises, we can have an open bidding, or we can discuss the renewal of franchises with the existing bus companies. But in terms of what I said earlier, in the last few years, we see that the operation of buses, the market has changed. One is that there are new rail lines. So in terms of the market for buses, it is becoming smaller. Second, more, the profit is increasing. The cost is increasing. So therefore, are there any new participants at the same? We were not very optimistic or saw any signs that there are new participants, because the investment for bus is very big, and they also need experience to run buses, because otherwise it is very hard to operate such a big network. Therefore, at that time, and as well, so we did a consultation with the LegCo, and everyone thinks that we should discuss whether to renew the franchise with the existing companies and whether or not, and everyone agrees with this. Second, more, in terms of the interim review, so what we are doing right now is that there are lots of requirements that we need from them, and they need to continuously fulfill this. And these requirements come from the Transport Department as well as the Commissioner for Transport. So we continually monitor this. It's not that we only take action in a certain period. So right now, and under the current arrangements, there are some provisions that allow the administration, that is after there's that the first 4 years after the grants of the new franchise, there is something that you may call an interim review. So yes, we do have these provisions. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to have a follow-up. As the Secretariat said that it seems that the administration considers that if the entire bus network is not easy to allow new participants. But I think that in society, some people say that could there be some regional bus routes? So, for example, inviting tenders for these. So I would like to ask, in terms of bidding for regional lines, so in the future, for example, in the KMB, would you have these sort of discussions, Chairman? And I would just simply say that because KMB's franchise is going to 2017, so that will expire then. So when we are if we will be granting new license or not, we'll consult LegCode then. Mr. Wu, I think your question is overreaching. Yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Wu Qiming. Yes, I think the topic should be about whether we agree with the resolution. But I hear some members say that in terms of the length of the franchise, first I must say that one of my activities in my group is for franchise. But we're looking at the bus designs that a lot of them are older than 10 years. So I think that 10 years of franchise is not even long enough. If you're doing a very short franchise, then a lot of people will not do it. So I think 10 years is a very basic requirement. Of course, some members say that if the bus companies are not doing well, then the commissioner should use his discretion to do some penalties. But we see that right now the operation is difficult, and as Undersecretary had said, because everyone has agreed that the rail line should be the main transportation, and so the bus companies will be operating in increasingly difficult environments. So I think that we should help. If we want to help them to do better, I think we should reorganize the routes, and that will need the cooperation of the entire society. So, of course, there's also the problem of environmental pollution. So I hope that everyone can put in a hand. In terms of, I think that the bus operation is very difficult. But I hope that the administration can consider perhaps giving some help. But I think it will be very hard for someone else to be interested because of the decreasing market. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. If there are no other questions from members, then let's go into the review of the resolutions. No, all members have this Public Bus Services Ordinance resolution. I know that our legal advisor has already written and asked the administration some questions. So, in terms of the resolution, the provision. So, are we mentioning the entire provisions, or is it? Are we not including the entire provisions? And the administration has a response, and these questions are at your desk. So I'd like to ask our legal advisor to give a few words. Yes, thank you. Hello, members. First, I would like to ask the administration, in terms of the resolution, to give a brief introduction first, and then later on I'll talking about the legal aspects. Yes, thank you. Administration. Yes, Mr. Please, could you give a few words? Yes, the drafting of the resolution. Mr. Emmanuel, yes. So in terms of these three resolutions, first we're looking at city bus. So this is a resolution for the LegCode in terms of the Public Bus Services Ordinance Cap.230, Section 5(3)(b), that we resolve that the franchise granted on 24th April 2012 under Section 5 of the Public Bus Services Ordinance Cap.230 to City Bus Limited and published in the Gazette as GN 3182 of 2012 is not subject to sections 27, 28, 29, and 31 of that ordinance for the entire period of the franchise. Secondly, is in relation to New World First Bus Services Limited. That is the same. Yes, that's right. Now, Mr. How about this? Can you... so I think there are some questions from a legal advisor, and I know that you've responded. Can you tell us what your response is?
Well,
the reply is not specifically about the law drafting. Perhaps I defer to the Bureau. Well, in fact, members probably have seen that this doesn't say that the bus companies will not be governed by the profit control scheme. The way it is drafted is to specify the specific provisions in the resolution. Now, if you look at the Public Bus Services Ordinance, the PCS has been defined in Section 2 in terms of the profit control scheme, and 26 to 32 falls within Section 5. So the administration has highlighted sections 27, 28, 29, 31. Now, our question is why did the administration pick these provisions alone? What about 26 to 32? What about the other provisions in terms of their implications? In this regard, we've written to the administration and solicited a response so that we get to know about the legislative intent and to facilitate a more specific scrutiny by members. The administration has kindly given us a very detailed reply to the questions. Today it has been tabled in front of members. Now we have included the legal advisors' questions, the administration's replies, and also all the relevant chapters and verses have been included. Perhaps I defer to the administration as to why they've highlighted only the provisions. Right, 26 and 32, these provisions serve some purposes. So can you elaborate on this, please? Under Secretary. Well, Section 5 of the Ordinance, 27, 28, 29, 31 will not be applying to the new franchises. This has to do with the development fund, the permitted return, and the deduction from the development fund and the review of the PCS. Since the franchises do not cover the PCS, the permitted return, and the development fund, so in this resolution, we have disapplied these provisions to the new franchises. As regards the provisions that are not covered, 26, 26A, and 32, they will continue to apply. Now, for instance, Section 26 is basically about monitoring the financial situation of the bus operators. So whether the PCS is applicable, this Section 26 will still apply, and that would enable the administration to effectively monitor the financial situation of the bus operators, and that is quite indispensable. And 26A has to do with the operating costs and the expenditure, and there are financial penalties to be imposed, and that will not be included as part of the overheads. Cap.230 during the course of the franchise. There is a depreciation and residual value in respect of the fixed assets. 32 has to do with the powers of the Financial Secretary. The bus company has to produce all the statements and books and accounts to the Financial Secretary, and all these provisions have to be kept on as a means to monitor the operation of the bus operators, and this has nothing to do with the PCS, so that's why they are kept on. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, our legal advisor is happy with the administration's replies. Any further questions? No? All right then, we're done with the scrutiny of this resolution, and we will be making a report to the House on the 1st of March. We will be making a report to the House on the result of today's scrutiny. The franchise will come into effect in May this year. Anything else, Under Secretary? No. Right, that's it for today. And that wraps up the work of this subcommittee. Thank you all very much.